What's going on, Bears fans? It is great to be back with you on this Saturday afternoon. The sun is shining in my home of Dallas, Texas. Thoughts of tornadoes and storms are well behind us, and we can get back to the tornado that ran through Chicago when New Orleans visited and just go through that. Now, obviously, as you can probably tell, I'm not here to say things that are absurdly positive about the Bears because that wasn't an absurdly positive game. But I'll do what I can to be as positive as possible because, a lot like Matt Nagy, I don't really like dwelling in the negative, but I do think it's important that we talk about it. Now, here in this opening monologue, I'll be straightforward. I'm looking to buy time for y'all to ask questions because I could talk about Trubisky, I could talk about the running game and scheme issues there. I could talk about what's going on with defense. I could talk about line play that was surprisingly good. I could talk about special teams because there were a couple of guys that had fantastic games on special teams and made huge plays. I mean, for crying out loud, I bet you'd be surprised as to who specifically it was that sprung the Cordero Patterson touchdown. So, feel free to just hit me up with your questions. If I don't get them or mention them by name, I apologize. I'll be doing the best that I can. But at the moment, let's see if we can't start with We'll start with the Patterson touchdown because I certainly find it interesting, and let's be honest, it was one of the biggest plays of the game. So let's just find it right around here. We are looking for, you know what, we'll just control F it. All right, Patterson, there it is. Perfect. So, yes, whoever said it, the camera work was solid. Hooray. Love that. But before we get into hardcore football analysis, I will go ahead and drop myself further into the corner so that we can get out of the way and you can watch this touchdown roll. Now, we're going to be watching everything from the All-22 perspective because, surprise, 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 the NFL copy-tagged my last stream due to using any broadcast footage at all. So I'm going to do what I can to avoid that because I love y'all in the live chat. Y'all do a great job. You're part of the experience, to be honest. And when the NFL copy claims it, it takes the live chat away, which is a huge bummer. But anyways, yes, COH Overthrower, I plan to find things that are positive, even if they're not as positive as you think they are. Truth be told, let's get all the cards on the table one last time. The Bears got shellacked in this game. We lost it the way that I would phrase it, 33-36 to 10, because I don't really want to count the garbage time stuff. But let's go back through this touchdown because maybe you have, maybe you haven't seen it, but when the Bears, by the way, I improved. I got the cursor rolling, so that's awfully fun. But so here in this touchdown, we see a whole bunch of blocking, but there's one guy in particular that makes a specifically good play to spring Patterson for the block overall. Let's slow it down, and you'll see it. Check out what Mike Davis does right here. So everybody's got their blocks as they do, but it is... Let's see, maybe I need to pull it back a little bit further. I do. Okay, so kickoff comes in, and this is a bit slow for my taste, so let's speed it up to the point where it matters. There, you've got to be kidding me. Here we go. Watch Mike Davis right here, I believe he is. There he is, 25. So he's going to hit his man and annihilate him almost entirely. Then he's going to cut this guy off and force him to take an angle that he doesn't want, which allows Cordero Patterson the lane that he wants on that right-hand side to then go make the plays that he's known for. I personally found it particularly interesting, I'll be honest, because I didn't see Mike Davis at all on the offense. I know nobody really did. And so... there are a lot of guys that made really solid blocks. Certainly Ben Broniker was a special teams hero all throughout the day, but I found it really interesting that the guys that you don't really expect to be the ones making huge plays are often the little key pieces in the game of football. It is the ultimate team sport, and let's be honest, with the Bears getting destroyed, there is a whole lot of truth to the idea that they've just got to get better, that the coaching has to be at least part of the problem when it comes to the conversation, because when you've got everybody making mistakes here and there on offense, it's just, I mean, again, it's a huge problem, and the coaching has to wear it. Now, thankfully, we've got some questions here in the stream, which is a whole lot of fun. So the first one, let's go with who's more to blame, Trubisky or Nagy? Thank you for asking this, Daniel Niles. So I think that that's a complicated question, and let me go through why. Now, let's see if we can't find the play that I'm thinking of. There are a couple plays that I think work well right around here to talk about when it comes to who's doing what on offense. And let's see if I pick the right one, because there are a couple of plays where it's pretty clear that Mitch Trubisky isn't going through his reads quite the way that you'd want him to. Now let's watch this play and let's see before I make a decision here and there. So perfect. This is exactly the play that I want to talk about. Now, I talked about this on Twitter a little bit, but I want to verbally go through it because I think it's important. So let's watch this play one more time, and what you'll see is a pretty basic drop back where Trubisky's going to take the snap, as we see here. He's going to stare at Robinson pretty much the whole way, and then with two defenders, one here and one here, he's going to try to fit the ball between the two. The ball lands about 5 feet in front of him, and that's obviously not a great play. Now, here's the question. You, as the quarterback and as a play caller, you have to ask yourself, as a fan, trying to differentiate between the two, okay, well, that's sort of a bad play if Robinson, the first read, isn't open. What else could Trubisky have done? Now, that's a great question that I want to answer from the behind-the-camera footage. So now that we're under center, we can watch in slow-mo, as you'll see on this right side of the line, Rashad Coward is going to hold his block. Whitehair is going to hold his block. Massey's going to guide his man down into the alley as Trubisky loads to throw the football. Now, what's interesting to me is this is, in my opinion, the perfect play to illustrate the difference between Trubisky in 2019 and Trubisky in 2018. And I don't know whether or not it was Trubisky or the offense or Nagy who's guiding him, but Trubisky would usually run this ball. Usually, at least, he would take off through this alleyway right here, but instead, he stares down Allen Robinson, and he tries to fit this ball through a teeny tiny window, and also seems, whether it's, I think it's due to footwork, though it's not entirely clear to me because he kicks this leg out way over here, opening up his base, that he gets that ball way too low. This throw never really has a chance. Now, here's what's interesting about whether or not he has, or what would have happened had he run out. Let's rewind back to here. So if he had run in through that alley, he doesn't need to run for a first down to cause some chaos. Watch David Montgomery here. So Montgomery's going to kick out towards his right side, and there's only one linebacker sitting in coverage, zone coverage specifically, who's able to make a play. If Trubisky leaks out this way, David Montgomery and this linebacker have David Montgomery and Mitch Trubisky have a 2-on-1 with the linebacker and a whole lot of room, because the next guy to the play would likely be Robinson's high man or the safety. But either way, given that it's a first down play, if I remember correctly, we are going to get more offense out of Trubisky leaking out and playing that mobile quarterback role that we've seen him play in the past than I think we would have had with the throw that he attempted to make. I like, and I said it a lot in the offseason, I like the fact that Mitch Trubisky is trying to be a pocket passer. The problem is he's not been very good at it, and that is holding the offense back to quite a degree. Now, I want to fast forward to the end of the game because I want to play both sides here. I'll be the first to tell you that I thought Mitch Trubisky did a lot to hold the offense back. And okay, we'll do our fast forward in a second. First, I want to talk about a miss that everybody saw that we have to go through because I think it sets the tone well. I need to talk about the Gabriel miss that we've all watched, but I don't know who has and who hasn't seen it on the All-22 because in my opinion, it's pretty rough. So this is a 3rd and 5 play after the Bears had missed something on 2nd and 5. I can't honestly remember. But so we've got this throw to Gabriel right here that's a little too far out in front, and what could have been a roughly 12 to 17-yard gain and was fairly open. The Bears miss on it, and they have to punt. Now, here's the problem. Let's take a look from under center so that we can check out the line, because I want you to see with a double block there, and a well-blocked, and Leno handling his business, as does Massey, this is as close to a clean pocket as Trubisky has had. I mean, close isn't even fair. This is a clean pocket. He's got all the room he wants. Again, you've got Whitehair handling his business, and the throw is just I mean, it's too far in front. And I understand that maybe Taylor Gabriel could have made a Herculean effort to try to get to this ball, but let me see if I can catch it on the freeze frame. Let me try again. So the point is that this throw, in my opinion, is too far out in front. I could illustrate it as best I can. Let's just go slow-mo. That should work better. This throw comes out, and we are going to see that it is just about 2 feet further in front of him than it needs to be. And yes, that's splitting hairs, but almost everything in the NFL is splitting hairs to some degree. And while, again, maybe he dives, maybe he gets his fingertips on it, I think that that's a little bit too much. Or it's not that it's too much to ask for the receiver. It's that with a guy this open, you need that throw to be better. You just do. And these sorts of things, I think, held the Bears back because as you probably saw watching the game, there wasn't a whole lot that Matt Nagy could call in the first half because while players would get open, a whole lot of times they weren't, those opportunities weren't converted on. Not to mention, as I'm sure you have heard, as has been discussed all the time, and I disagree, Davon. I really think that he's not going to catch that. The point is, Mitch Trubisky's mistakes really cost the Bears. This first and 10 RPO has been talked about to death. But just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, let me see if there we go. So Mitch Trubisky's going to read Cam Jordan. I'm just going to rehash this really quickly because for anybody who hasn't heard the explanation. But basically, when Trubisky makes this snap, he's got to read whether Cam Jordan is sitting on him because they're intentionally leaving him unblocked. That's how an RPO works. Or he's got to give to David Montgomery if Jordan is crashing down. As you can see, as we can see here from the snap, Jordan actually hesitates. He does exactly what you should do if you're going to give the ball away. So Trubisky needs to give it, and he talked about it in the presser, blah, 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 blah. Point is, what really surprised me about the play is that Mitch Trubisky turns left. Now, what you should do in almost any RPO setting is you're supposed to throw where the read has your eyes. So that means that when you are reading this way, you are also able to look past the defender right there and throw to David That's Anthony Miller. So when Miller comes open off of zone, he should be the target, even if Trubisky has to step over this way to open up a bit of a better angle. The fact that he turns left is a little bit, it worries me. Hard to say not, because when he turns away, that leaves this now unblocked defender with an evidently clear path to Trubisky. And if he can't get that ball out, you're talking about a sack on a play that, it's got a run option. You aren't supposed to lose yards on this play. But what surprised me the most was after that RPO play, Matt Nagy, in my opinion, called up a play that absolutely should have worked. Let's talk about it here. So this is the 2nd and 18 play, and I don't know if you saw this on Twitter because I talked about this one too, but after the motion, before the snap, let's take a look right here at the defense. What do you see? Because if you see what I'm seeing, it looks like the Bears have an overload right here. So they've got 3 guys matched up against one linebacker who seems to be in soft zone. And you notice that because, and I'll back it up, when Miller moves in, nobody specifically moves with him. They change the way that their eyes are set, but they don't actually move. They just single out where they're going. This is a very clear indicator of a zone defense. And so then that means that right now you're assuming that 2 of these guys are going to be sitting in a zone, and then you don't know where the safety's going. And let's be clear. If the safety sits down here in short coverage, right around where I've got the cursor highlighting, then that's a big problem, and you definitely don't want to look that way. But if the safety leaves, what we're going to see is that Trey Burton is going to come wide open exactly where you're looking for him to get the ball. While I understand that, again, it's 2nd and 18, and you want to try to pick up some yards to help yourself out on 3rd down, let's be really clear here. Again, 2nd and 18, you are looking to see if you can't get a lot of those yards back and give yourself options, especially given that the Saints have been playing zone on your quarterback all game long. Now here's the deal. Robinson's open. Don't get me wrong. And the completion that Trubisky makes, let's be clear, it picks up 4 or 5 yards. It's not bad per se, but let me make sure that I replay it and give you all the chance to see what happens, because Burton is going to come wide open off of this snap. He is going to, let's get the slow-mo going at the right time. Perfect. So we're going to see Trubisky take this snap and watch the safety right here. The safety is now bailed back. It's about 5 yards further backwards than you would anticipate, and this means that Burton's shallow out route towards the sideline is going to be wide open. And I understand that we're looking at a freeze frame that's a bit unusual here because Trubisky's already thrown the ball, and defenses always look really weird after you actually get rid of the ball because that's not how you make a decision. But it's really strange to me that Trubisky doesn't even check that left-hand side. And I don't know what Matt Nagy's telling Mitch Trubisky. I got to be really clear about that. I have no idea. I'm no mind reader. I'm just somebody who's watching the film just like anybody else. But it's really strange to me that he doesn't even take a look after we've heard so much about touchdown to check down mentality. And this play, if you really watch the route packaging here, is totally set up to beat this exact style of zone. So again, let's make sure that we watch, and we'll see that these two curl routes right here are going, those two curl routes draw the two defenders down further, opening up Burton's ability to drift over here and take advantage of a safety. This means that if you throw the ball on a line over this defender and basically hit the ball right on Burton, you're going to be able to have a quick completion that'll pick up at 2nd and 18, so I guess that'd be roughly 16 yards, exactly what the Bears would need to create a 3rd and 2 short situation. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I haven't loved what the Bears are doing on 3rd and short, but it is really interesting to me that Trubisky doesn't actually look towards that left-hand side where, again, he's got a 3-on-2 overload and he knows zone is coming. So he doesn't check the safety. He just watches Allen Robinson and he makes a completion. But that completion only helps the Bears so much, forces a 3rd and 14 that I'll pull the play up really quickly. He effectively misses. And he's looking for a tight window right here. And I got to give the Saints defense credit because they didn't make this throw easy. But this one to Allen Robinson, theoretically, you want your quarterback to hit it because that ball, and I'll see if I can't get the freeze frame correct, if that ball is, there we go, if that ball's basically right here, it's a catch. It's not to say that it's a bad throw. Again, we're talking about a tough throw here, but it is a little bit worrying that when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky, it feels as if every single play we've got that little, or we've got a little bit of a critique that ends up saying, man, if that ball was two more feet inside, that's a catch. Man, if that ball was a little bit over here, that's a catch. Man, if he just ran here, we can make a play. Man, it's a lot of mans and not a lot of, yes, he did it. Again, we're looking at a screenshot in which Allen Robinson will play the play. He gets his hands on it, and you'd like to see him catch it, but it would be a heck of a catch if he does. I'm not trying to say, this is all on Trubisky's fault, but it's not helping anything that Mitch Trubisky isn't hitting the targets that are helping his receivers out. I don't need to cover the Anthony Miller deep ball because we all saw it. And while I understand that Mitch Trubisky said that he wants Miller to break outside on that play, actually, maybe we will cover it because I can already hear it being interesting. That play to Miller, what's really intriguing about it is that on the play just before it, let's watch Miller here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So Nagy and Trubisky talked about how they want Miller to release outside, which is interesting because that's what he does here. So Miller's running that outside route, and he's open. And I'm not going to hammer him on trying to make the short throw. That's fine. It's 2nd and 2. So he's looking for the first down. But because he threw I guess if we were going to be really critical, we would say that you really want him to actually be able to get the ball to David Montgomery. But again, I'm not trying to make this stream into a let me hammer Trubisky thread. It's more just we're talking about what's going on. In this case, what I find interesting is that Anthony Miller, he releases outside, just like the coach and the quarterback said he should. So then on the next play, where they're going to target Miller, the cornerback is going to set up on the outside. Watch his shoulders. He's ready. He's waiting, and he wants Miller to take the inside. He's taking the outside route away from him. So Miller does what any good receiver should. You can see he's already got his weight cocked to the outside. He's basically just sitting here waiting for it. So then Miller breaks inside and he beats him again. That's what you want your NFL receiver to do. I will go to bat for Anthony Miller, and it's not just because I made an entire video about him. It's actually because a lot of his mistakes are what you want your elite receivers to do. You want them to be able to adjust their routes on the fly, just like Allen Robinson does all the time, so that they can get open. This throw, even though Trubisky's he's in a tight pocket situation, I'm very cognizant of that because, as we can see here, it's not the greatest pocket in the world, but he is throwing from a spot where he has room to put the ball where he wants to. This is a pocket that by most NFL standards, again, it's collapsing, and he gets the ball out exactly when he should to be super fair. But when it comes to where the throw goes, you're wanting it to be in a better spot than... I don't know why the spacebar does that, by the way. You're wanting it to be in a better spot than right there. Davon, what I personally think when it comes to this play call, Miller gets open. The opportunity is there. This is the separation you want. You just want the ball to be somewhere closer to probably the 0 on the 50-yard line so that, I got that totally wrong. But the point is, you want that ball to be a bit fading out here, protect Miller from the safety. But again, he's there. And if you put in, not to pick out some random names, if you put in anybody from Aaron Rodgers to probably even Matt Ryan, they're going to make this play. And that's what you want out of your number 2 overall pick. Now, enough with the Trubisky stuff, because it's been 20 minutes of thread, and all I've done is talk about Trubisky and a little bit of Patterson, Mike Davis. But I do want to make one thing clear. By the end of the game, let's go through the 4th and 3 that we all hated. Because Trubisky certainly seems to throw this ball away. By the end of the game, there was nothing left. The Matt Nagy's concepts were done, and this is where things get confusing. Let me play the play. We'll get to the part that I think matters the most. So here is the point where Trubisky's getting pressured, and I want you to take a look around the field. Cohen's not really open. This receiver isn't really open. Gabriel's certainly not open. This receiver over here isn't open, and Trubisky's got pressure in his face after a line thing. The point being that by the end of the game, whether it's Nagy's fault or Trubisky's fault, and I can't be the oracle that answers it, because while I do think that Trubisky's limitations are really holding the offense back, you're going to end up having to make the decision on your own what you think is going on, but the Saints had completely snuffed out the entire Bears offense. There was nothing there. Let's watch this play in full speed, and you tell me where Trubisky could go with it, because Gabriel's shadowed, and Cohen's not really open. He doesn't have a lane. Miller ends up getting open, but Trubisky ends up getting pressured too quickly for that to matter, and then any other Bears receivers, Robinson or Burton, they've got a guy on them, and it's just not working. I mean, Mitch Trubisky spent the entire game throwing short for one reason or another and missing almost all his opportunities at mid-range and deep range. And whether or not that affected the offense, it sure looks like it by the end, because as the Bears tried to pass the ball before they got into quote-unquote garbage time, it just wasn't effective. Nobody was open. I could show you more plays, but that's sort of the key there, is that nobody was really open because the whole offense seemed to have been snuffed out. It was pretty brutal to watch. So I'm hoping that things can get better from there. Certainly, I hope they do. Somebody asked a minute ago, do I think the season is salvageable? That's a great question. So a lot of it, in my opinion, hinges on our number 2 overall pick, and it also hinges on what the team does, especially when it comes to the running game, because if you want to criticize Nagy, I think that's where you have to look. Let me go over one or a couple of different plays. So I don't know if any of you people that are watching the stream, any of you wonderful fans, thank you so much for tuning in on your Saturday afternoon, watched Baldy's breakdowns, but I got to tell you, I kind of disagree with Baldy's premise here. So what he talked about is that Matt Nagy's scheme has too much motion and that you have to hammer people, but you have to hammer people and just run it straight down the gut, because what Baldy talked about is that the safety getting my thoughts in order. The safety that Gabriel's motion draws in right here, number 25, I believe, is the one who, wrong. So I think it's his linebacker or corner right here, number 22. Yeah, so his motion brings him into the scope of the backfield, and he ends up making the play on Cohen. Now, here's the problem. When you actually look at the all 22, or when you look at it from behind center, what you're going to end up seeing is that this linebacker right here, 55, he gets taken out of the play, meaning that by the time, if we count the other one, 22, the cornerback, as quote-unquote in the play, and 55 as out of the play, we are going to see that they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, exactly what we would expect. So take him out and put the other one in. You're still looking at a 6-on-6 box. That's important because what this shows is if we watch Whitehair and Daniels, on a combo block concept, what you really want is you're wanting these guys to double block this one, and Whitehair's supposed to stay on his feet, and because he doesn't, Daniels has to take over being the quote-unquote main blocker on this guy. What you want is something more like what we're seeing over here, and let me back it up. What we're looking for is we're looking to try to make sure that after these guys get a combo block going right here, you want to try to get one of your guys releasing off of them so that they can go block somebody else. The fact that our guys stayed here in effectively 2-on-1 situations allowed 22 to get completely free. But what you want, theoretically, and you can see them trying to do it here, you want Whitehair to be the guy with most of the leverage so that Daniels can move off and go block him, and Coward can move off of this guy and go block the linebacker. You do that, you're looking at a whole lot of positive. As Burton runs over here, he gets a neat little cut block, and if Daniels, dadgum, Chase Daniels versus James Daniels has tripped me up so many times. I'm sure a whole lot of you guys have felt the same way. But since Daniel doesn't move off to stop him, he, of course, is sitting right in the lane, and Cohen doesn't really have anywhere to go, and that shuts this play down. So I disagree with Baldy there. I actually think this one's on execution. But there's a play that I think exemplifies why scheme is an issue for this Bears running game, and it's Miller's fumble. So watch the play from the not broadcast angle, but from the true all-22 angle, and we see something a little bit disturbing. So we'll see it especially under center. I want you guys to watch Massey, Burton, and Montgomery specifically. Take a look at exactly where they end up, all in the same place. We are looking at this guy, the linebacker, 55, unblocked. Burton kind of touching him, but I can't stand the fact that it does this. What we're going to see is all three of these guys end up blocking specifically the same person, and both of these players have a free pass to Miller, who then they rip the ball out. This isn't to excuse a fumble. I'm not going to be somebody who tries to say, whatever. Of course he was going to fumble. Miller needs to hang on to the football, but it is really interesting to me. Now, here's the thing, and this was actually really, really cool. I noticed that this means with Montgomery effectively being the lead back, he's playing a fullback style position. And to be honest with you, I don't actually know much about fullbacks because when I got into football, modern offense was a thing. And even though my first Bears team had a great guy like Jason McKee on it, I didn't actually get the chance to watch enough to really understand what a fullback does. So I actually reached out to McKee himself, and I mean, by the grace of God, he actually replied to me, which was great. And what he taught me is, in a play like this, with Massey pulling his guy and his guy on the outside, theoretically the running lane, let me back it up a little bit so you can see exactly where it should be. The running lane's actually to the inside on this play. So what that means is that with things right about here, Massey's guiding his guy out right, Burton's got this player, 24, on the right-hand side, and you're actually hoping that Montgomery's going to plant his foot and go block that inside linebacker. This would give Miller a lane right up there to run on through. So again, it's looking like the Bears have more execution issues in their running game than anything else. But here's the problem, folks. Here's the problem, Bears fans. David Montgomery is a running back, and Anthony Miller is a wide receiver. And wide receivers want the edge, and running backs are not fullbacks. What we've got here is a case of the Bears playing guys out of position and expecting them to be in proper position for what you would want. The truth is, as I see it, because the Saints did this all the time, is that you're wanting more. I think what probably would have been better is to have Montgomery carrying the ball and a true fullback actually blocking for David Montgomery. If we want to run these power style concepts, you don't need a wide receiver to do it. You can ask a guy who's played that position all his life to go make a play, because as we can see here, whether it's by design because Miller doesn't want to go inside or not, Montgomery can't stand Game Pass, y'all. Montgomery ends up running on or towards the outside, straight into where the guys have blockers, and Miller ends up, as we know, in a 2-on-1 setting where he just gets blasted and he fumbles, and the Bears end up getting scored on because of it. Now, this is where, in my opinion, the Bears have a legitimate issue when it comes to their running scheme. They keep asking guys to do things that they don't want to do or they're not good at. And then somebody will miss a block. So there is definitely issues when it comes to execution, but I think that this running playbook in general needs a serious look. I'll tell you right now, let me cut to the chase. If I had to make a call on who's good at what, it seems as if Matt Nagy's a fairly good leader. The locker room loved him last year, so that's a thumbs up, but obviously we'll see. I mean, if he loses the locker room, that's really bad. Matt Nagy's passing game coordination, it seems really solid. And here, if we don't get to enough, because we're already at that 30-minute mark, which is kind of wild. Thank you all for listening. If we don't get to anything else, I could show you example after example after example, basically, of Matt Nagy scheming somebody open in the field in a spot where Mitch Trubisky ought to be checking for it. Because, to be clear, and let me see if I can find one, there are different situations where you're talking about players, and somebody will point out on Twitter or something, this guy's wide open, but not really, because what you'll see in a lot of all-22 settings is, let's say, this is a decent example of what I kind of want to talk about. So Allen Robinson's open, he picks up 6 yards, neat. And some people will look at, in cases of incompletions, they'll say, he's got to look towards his left side. Look at Tariq Cohen. Not that Tariq's wide open here, but let's pretend he is. And you'll see a backside route that's just not in the view of the quarterback, nor should it be. Not even close. And in my opinion, you can't credit those. But what you can do, like in situations where I showed you Burton earlier, even though that was over on the left-hand side and Robinson was on the right, is situations where a pre-snap read tells you should be looking in that direction. And then I think, like with the 2nd and 18, it's a 2nd and 18 play, and I don't know about y'all, but I just don't think Matt Nagy is the kind of guy who would call a 4-yard hitch route on 2nd and 18. He's going to give himself a chance for the quote-unquote touchdown and not just immediately defer to the check down. So I'm trying to figure this out just like y'all are. And I know there's a play. Let's see if I can find it where we've got Burton just running wide open over the middle. So I'll fast forward here. It looks like this is the one. It is. So check out a couple of different things, like maybe this isn't. So there are a couple of different plays throughout this game where Burton is just so wide open, similar to this. And I love the Bears. Like you said, Jovan McNair, the Bears are great. I want them to succeed. But it seems to me, as I keep watching this passing game, like Matt Nagy knows how to coordinate it, but the running game needs work. That we could use some serious help with, and I really want to see the Bears improve there. Now, let's talk about some positive things, because there were positive things to talk about. We just have to sort of search for them. So one guy that came back to the Bears this week that I thought did an excellent job overall, very similar to his rookie year, but he looks better at the things that I know he needed improvement on, was Bilal Nichols. I don't need to waste any extraneous words here, but take a look at number 98 on this play. So one thing that, if you watched my Bilal Nichols breakdown, I noted that he struggled with was using power to move guys. But in this play, and I'm sort of just grasping at straws here, Bilal Nichols was huge in helping Eddie Goldman stop the run, because as you can see with what the Saints did, they rarely ran at him. And if you watched my live stream on the Raiders, that was a huge thing that a lot of guys that I tried to talk about, was that the Raiders wanted to run away from Eddie Goldman in every chance they could before they started cut blocking him over and over and over. In this play, Bilal Nichols actually regains the advantage. So you're going to see this tackle comes in, and this shouldn't be this hard of a block for the tackle because he's got that outside leverage that he wants already. Oh, it's the guard. Apologies. But so this guard is going to step over, and as you can see, he's got the window that he wants. He's got Nichols where he wants him, but Nichols is able to actually use strength to overcome that, work his left hand back open, get his entire shoulder in the running lane, and stop the run for no gain. That's huge. Because with Akeem Hicks out, and I've tried to talk about this in other things, basically Fangio's 3-4 defense that was truly more of a 2-5 because he played in nickel all the time really only worked because Vic Fangio was able to put Eddie Goldman and Akeem Hicks on that front part of the line. So to go back to it, here we've got Pagano running a true three-man front, which he talked about in his press conference he wanted to do more of, especially early in the game, but they ended up going away from it because the Saints were punishing it, and we could get to that. But there are a bunch of different plays where you can pretty plainly see that Eddie Goldman needs help because he's getting run away from, but in situations where wipe out the three-man front in your mind, put one guy here, that's Goldman, and one guy here, that's Hicks, they were able to stop almost all running attempts against them, and it was flat out amazing in 2018. If you ever wondered why the Bears were so good against the run, it was those two guys specifically playing at an amazing level. Eddie Goldman has been worth every penny, even though he doesn't always get the credit that he deserves, in my opinion. But there is one guy that I want to talk about, and let's see if I can find a decent example of it, because Roquan Smith has not looked like the player that we anticipated him to be this year, which is a huge bummer, because I, for one, thought he was going to take a massive step forward, but instead, he's looked a little bit, dare I say it, meek. So, here is, I think, a decent example. What you're wanting is your linebacker in a setting like this, and this isn't the world's greatest example, so just bear with me on this. But when this running lane opens up the way that it does, so you are looking for, let's see the snap. Goldman is going to shift to his right. Roy Robertson Harris and Danny Trevathan are going to occupy these blockers, and Roquan Smith is reading the back. Once he takes the snap, and especially once he commits over here, you're looking for your linebacker to step up and get inside the lane. But here, as he continues to shuffle, we don't see that burst forward from Roquan that we saw over and over and over last season. Instead, he actually just sort of waits in the hole, in fact, gives up a little bit of extra yardage, and what could have been a 1, maybe 0-yard run becomes a 4-yard gain. And those matter because if you can't stop the bleeding, slow bleeding in the running game, you're going to end up getting toasted occasionally. There's another play that I've got in mind. Let's see. I think this is it. So this is for a first down. Let me make sure it's the, yep. Okay, so this just shows another potentially troublesome play from Roquan, because let's watch the whole play, and then you can stare at Roquan. If you want to work ahead, you can look at Roquan now. So he's going to scramble Bridgewater, and he's going to end up making the play, and that right there is a first down. It's a very short first down, but it's first down because this is 3rd and 3. Those were exactly the amount of yardage he needed. Now, watch Roquan Smith, because this is the guy who you're hoping, if Bridgewater scrambles, has him under control. He's actually going to get trampled over here, which, don't get me wrong, it's not a great play by the corner, but you're hoping that he's aware enough to stay out of that position. And then he gets up, he sees Bridgewater running, but he hesitates and effectively allows the first down himself, which is not great. So these are the sorts of plays where they have me wondering what is going on with Roquan Smith. I want to know just as bad as any Bears fan does, because Roquan Smith looked amazing in training camp. I saw it with my own eyes. The guy was just flying around. So I don't know what happened, and I want to give him all the space that he needs, because any personal situation like this is a big problem. It's a problem for him. And it is a personal life thing. And while these football players are awesome and basically heroic, and we love watching them, they are people too. And I want to give them the space that they need to heal in whatever setting they're going through. But as far as a football perspective goes, Roquan Smith doesn't seem like he's playing particularly well. He's a little bit slower to get almost anywhere on the football field. It looks as if this is another Roquan Smith tackle, so let's see what happened. And Jason, I think that you've said something exactly correct. Roquan Smith's a great football player, and when he's at his best, he's playing really well. But right now, something's going on, and he's just getting mauled. Oh, here we go. So somebody mentioned in the comments just a little while ago that that Roquan keeps getting railroaded when it comes to blocks. This is why a fullback, a true fullback, could really help the Bears' offense. So watch here. You're going to see the fullback just mug Roquan Smith. And frankly, this is around the time of the game because this is the late third quarter when you could tell that the Bears defense got exhausted. And this front right here, Roy Robertson-Harris, Nick Williams, and Bilal Nichols, they gave up a lot of room on the ground, and it is not awesome. Check out the center here. I wish James Daniels was doing this year, but he's actually going to take Nick Williams. He's going to beat him so badly that he also blocks Danny Trevathan with him. The fullback, of course, completely clears the lane from Roquan, and as you can see here, not only does Roquan lose initial contact, but then he gives up about 5 more yards on the ground, and Latavius Murray just basically runs unimpeded up for a 17-yard gain. These are the gains that we weren't seeing the Bears give up in 2018, and a lot of it's because Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman just stayed healthy the entire year, which of course, that's what we wish we could have. We wish we had Akeem Hicks healthy, but the Bears defensive linemen, especially in any setting, and this is what really, if you want my honest opinion, it's what puzzled me quite a bit, was that the Bears allowed and were perfectly comfortable playing. The Bears were perfectly comfortable playing with Williams, Roy Robertson-Harris, and Nichols in the game. And while I really like Nichols right now as a supplementary defensive lineman, certainly he was the only one. Let's see if I can find a couple of the right plays. I don't know if you'll know this, but while I do preparation for these sorts of things, there's a lot of this that I just try to freewheel so that I can answer questions as well as possible. There is one of these where basically Bilal Nichols was one of the only players to really effectively, here we go, this is exactly what I want to say. So Roy Robertson-Harris, while I really like him as a pass rushing defensive lineman, he got damned up pretty bad when it came to pass rushing, and Nick Williams has had some solid pass rushing snaps, but it's Bilal Nichols here who's the only one who actually provides any pressure, and that's something that he did quite a bit, and you can see a little bit if we wanted to get really critical, that injury time has not done great for his conditioning. That's a lot of, quote-unquote wasted energy if you're talking about coaching points, but I did love watching the way that Nichols was using his hands because that's something I know he needed to get better at. He's able to get underneath leverage right there on the tackle, and while Bridgewater ends up getting plenty of time, Nichols does provide pressure, flush Bridge out of the pocket, and that forces an incompletion. When the Bears were able to get pressure, that was great. Now, that's part of the problem, isn't it? When the Bears were able to get pressure, because I don't know if y'all felt like this, but it sure seemed to me as if the Bears weren't getting near enough pressure when I first watched the game as they normally do. And then I went back and I watched it, and there are a couple of plays where it becomes pretty clear to me that the Bears were more than welcome to just allow Bridgewater all the time he needed so that because the Bears were trying to effectively beat Bridgewater the same way the Saints tried to beat Mitch Trubisky and did so effectively. The Bears played a ton of zone, like a lot of zone, and oftentimes, actually, they dropped pretty much everybody into coverage exactly like what we would anticipate. Now, let's see if this is the play that I'm thinking of, or if it works the way that I want it to. So here we see Khalil Mack kind of just get blocked, but this isn't the one I'm looking for. The point is that there are, let's see, is this it? There are a bunch of different plays where you can see this one works, where the Bears drop more guys into coverage and they allow their defensive linemen to go get the quarterback, and maybe you can see this here, but this is ugly. This is not a lot of pressure at all, and this is something that if the Bears defense, I'm not by any means trying to come out and blame the defense. They kept the game close. They made a lot of big stops, but when it comes to a backup quarterback playing, certainly a backup quarterback without Alvin Kamara, especially a defense that prides itself on being able to get pressure, this is a fine play, but Bridgewater has truly all the time in the world, and the Saints didn't give Trubisky near that kind of non-pressure situation. They came after Mitch, and you need to be able to put pressure on the quarterback at some point. And again, I don't know if this is partially because, if I remember the score correctly, because it's the start of the fourth quarter, things were starting to get really out of hand, but the Bears certainly allowed these sorts of plays pretty often, more than you'd think anyways, and it ended up harming them because as Bridgewater got time, he'd dice them up. And that was sort of part of the problem. This is the long completion to Ted Ginn, where what we're going to see is, and Pagano did this all the time. So what Pagano seems to be trying to do, because I already can hear plenty of Bears fans starting to criticize Eddie Jackson, and I've got this in a freeze frame right here. People are criticizing Jackson for, I think it's a fair reason. They're saying that he hasn't made any interceptions, and that's a huge problem. And don't get me wrong, I think the safety needs to be able to make plays, for sure. But we've got to remember exactly how Pagano's trying to use him. So what Pagano really expected, I think, is he expected Teddy Bridgewater not to go downfield. He expected him to stay short. And with that in mind, he consistently tried to keep, let's watch this zone before the big completion that we know is coming. He tried to keep the safeties further forward than backwards because he really likes Eddie Jackson as a ball hawk, and he wants to get him in situations where he's able to make plays on the ball. Here's a problem. Let's be really clear. Prince Amukamura is a press corner. That's what he does best at without any doubt at all. So when you've got Prince Amukamura effectively playing the deep zone safety, and certainly when you've got an in-breaking route right here, and Teddy Bridgewater has enough time to make this throw, I mean, this is as easy as it gets, folks. That is the route to beat this defensive scheme right here. Chuck Pagano got flat out beat to a large degree, and part of that's because the Bears weren't making plays. Let me refresh the play. Part of that's because they weren't making plays up front. They weren't able to pressure Bridgewater like they wanted to. Let's watch here as this defense is actually, I mean, they seem like they're somewhere between. Max certainly seems like he's rushing. He tries to take the outside, gets hit there. They've got effectively 3 players corralling him. So whether or not you call that enough, I don't know. But the Bears don't send a blitz. They keep everybody in coverage, and Ginn's got so much room. I mean, this is rough when it comes to the defense. And if this is how teams are going to start attacking us, that's problematic because we're banking on our front four to get pressure. We're banking on these guys. We're looking for Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd to make plays, but I'm pretty sure, that's Isaiah Irving who's in for Leonard Floyd because we don't have a fairly great edge 3, but I want to make sure you take a look here. Isaiah Irving's not even rushing because he's in coverage. The Bears just sent 4 players. They got burned for it, which is rough. And there are a couple of different plays like that. Certainly Roquan didn't play well. That's happening. And the scheme keeps asking Prince Amukamura to drop back into zones, which he's not comfortable with. But I more just wanted to show that because I think it's interesting. The defense is playing well. That's the way that I would phrase it. Are they playing at the otherworldly level of last year? I don't think so right now. Certainly Teddy Bridgewater he basically took them to the cleaners, all things told, especially as in this third quarter, Sean Payton just started to adjust, and the Bears were flummoxed in a couple of situations. Let me see if I can find one of my favorite play designs that just absolutely trounced the Bears. Let's see. This is it. So I'm sure y'all remember this play, but this is the run that completely flummoxed the Bears. So and then we've got, so here's the handoff, and this is the handoff pitch. But let's watch the play in all 22, and then I'll break it down. So Hill gets a really, really nice gain here. Now, this is where creative play calling, when you've got a running game that's working, because all of Sean Payton's different creative little gimmicks work fairly similarly to Nagy's. I mean, let's think about the 2018 Nagy offense. It works great. It works great is a little unfair. It's more to say that Matt Nagy's trickery often caught people exactly like you'd expect, but this year it's not working because the base plate stuff that isn't working. Effectively, the trick plays that are usually icing on the cake don't work when there's no cake. And let's take a look at right here where the Saints set up in a power left formation. It really looks like they're going to run this towards the left, and the Bears adjust accordingly. Take a look at all the different players that are sitting over here on this left side. Now watch what they actually do. So they give it to the running back, as everybody on their line just tries to seal the guys inside right here, and this isolates Leonard Floyd, who obviously thinks, okay, I got to go make a play, and he doesn't ever see Hill still on the outside. Maybe he saw him and knew that he could only commit to one of them and just had to do his best, but this leaves Hill so wide open that he can't not make a play. That's Hill's first brush with contact right there and with Clinton Dix. The pitch just perfectly isolates everybody, and then that's the first one. So really, Hill just gains about 5 extra yards on a 23-yard play where the Bears needed a stop, and if I remember correctly, it's a 3rd and short play. 3rd and 1. So that's a play where the Bears defense was just starting to get flat out coached because they were in the wrong position. That's not necessarily Pagano's fault. It's a great call by Sean Payton because in a game like football, you're going to have times where one coach just calls the right thing against the other, and while that is going to happen occasionally, I want to point it out, and I want to point out that it did happen quite a few more times than we would like, and especially after a game in London where it seemed as if Pagano got beat again on a lot of the same concepts. Plenty of the deep shots that the Saints called, or that the Raiders called, worked out well in the same way, targeting that Prince Amukamara deep zone. I'm hoping that they can bounce back in a big way against a Chargers team that looks as if it's not going to have Keenan Allen as well as a couple of different other guys. They have to take Austin Eckler's carries away and usage away because now Melvin Gordon's back on the team, which I think actually works out better for the Bears because Austin Eckler has been flat out dangerous. But we can talk about the Chargers a little bit later. Overall, I just wanted to, at this point, open it up again to y'all. Are there any other questions that you have? Because we've touched a lot of overall observations, but in general, what I saw in this Saints game was I saw a game that was 12-10 at halftime by no merit of the offense. The defense had played fairly well. The offense had actually kind of given the Saints a touchdown because while they Here's another thing that I'll point out while you potentially ask any questions. Let's talk about the touchdown specifically. So let me find it. Maybe it's in the first quarter. But after that Miller fumble, which was brutal, the Bears actually held them really, really well. We're looking at 3rd and 7 on the goal line. And what we saw, as you probably saw live, is a total coverage breakdown. You're going to see every single Bears defender drop into zone except for Buster Screen. And Buster Screen looks like he's in man. And if he's in zone, he thinks it's a different zone because everybody's doing basically the same thing except Screen, who is often the slot guy who I would have to expect had this deep zone or this shallow zone right here, and then Bridgewater options it out to the open guy and he runs it in for 7 yards. That's what I think is complicated about a lot of this Bears stuff. This is actually I think a pretty good example for what's going on with the Bears defense is that they occasionally just give up random plays where they either aren't all on the same page, or they, apologies, let me drink some water. They aren't all on the same page, or somebody makes a play, or the offense punishes a defensive alignment that exposes a hole in a specific place, but doesn't end up working out. It's okay to expose holes on defense if you're able to create pressure. Let's go back to that Bilal Nichols incompletion. Let me see if I can find it. But when Bilal Nichols forced that incompletion, there's actually there's two really there's one very, very open person, apologies for the extra words, where you can see, let's see this should be it. So as Bilal Nichols does this, we're going to see this Saints player leak out way open. It happens. Often that does look like a blown coverage. Don't get me wrong, but in zones, in plenty of cases, that's just not a responsibility that somebody has. What you're banking on is that the guy's not going to get so much time that he's able to make the play. And in this case, Bridgewater doesn't come all the way back to him, and the Bears get away with one. This happens. This is how football works. When you call a whole lot of zone, a good quarterback that's reading the field is going to take it away, and that's what the Saints did against the Bears. And Mitch Trubisky didn't really take it away. We've got two guys wide open deep because nobody really covered him. Jackson comes up right there. This guy kicks way out here. It's tough, guys. But whether that's a scheme issue or this is just we've got to get more pressure and so on and so forth, the Bears defense needs to tighten things up a little bit against the Chargers because, as somebody said in the comments, that's a lot. The Chargers' defensive line is a very solid one. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and I'm very curious to see how not only the offensive line, which generally looked better. Let's go pick a truly random offensive play and see if I can and see if I can show you one thing I saw. Charles Leno, who was a big problem for the last couple of weeks, played really good football. I mean, this is exactly what you're looking for your left tackle to do. And we can find another example if you really need some proof. But in general, Charles Leno looked much, much more like his old self. I was really happy with that because not only is he being paid a lot, but we need him to look to play solid football. Allen Robinson, of course, is just the guy. I mean, he's just a fabulous football player, but there are pieces on this offense for things to come together. They just need, I think, better quarterbacking play, whether that's from Trubisky or somebody else, and I could spitball on situations like that, but I don't know, guys. I mean, the Bears-Saints game was truly rough to experience on almost all facets of the game. The defense gave up things that you would hope that they didn't. Basically, all the defense did, the only criticism that I think that is warranted towards the defense is that by the end of the game, Sean Payton got their number. And by the end of the game, Sean Payton also, defensively speaking, that Saints team got the number of Nagy's offense. That's not good. That's a pretty classic out-coaching situation. Not to mention, the Bears had these very random mistakes that would happen here and there. And let's see if I can find the play to Cohen, this one. So this just shows whether it's poor coaching or not. We're looking at a Bears offense that just needs to get more in sync, to be honest, because this play very well could have been big. And yes, you're hoping that is not the incompletion that I was expecting it to be. Let me see if I can't dig this thing up. But what I'm looking for, maybe you've seen it or thought about it, but we're looking for the incompletion where Trubisky didn't see Tariq Cohen quite early enough, but Tariq Cohen ran out of bounds. That, to me, shows a whole lot of what's going on here because, well, okay, here we go. I think this is it. 3rd and 5. Yes. Okay, this is the angle. So, and L Train, while this play's heating up, Nagy could lose the locker room, certainly possible, but right here, let's kick it into slow motion. We are going to see that Tariq Cohen is going to, come on, there it is. Tariq Cohen's open, and if he distributes the ball right here, he's got tons of room to run up this alley. He doesn't. But Tariq Cohen needs to recognize what's going on and wheel upfield, flip his shoulders around, and get up that sideline so that if Trubisky does give him the ball, which he does late, he's still able to make some kind of a play on it. Yes, you would prefer for Trubisky to get him the ball right here because he's got all the room you could ask for. But given that he did not, this is a situation where when you look at where this throw lands, which is, that's the best I can give you guys, it's right about here, just based on memory's sake. If Cohen has wheeled around and is now charging up the sidelines, he's able to catch that with some velocity and still might beat this guy. So, in that setting, yes, better quarterback play helps turn this play into a bigger gain, certainly better than an incompletion. But players like Cohen aren't really helping. I don't need to go over it, but that Burton drop, as I watched it because, of course, they didn't show a replay of it on the broadcast, but I went back and watched the All-22. Yeah, that ball is right here in his hands. I got a football right here. So that ball is here. He's able to get his fingertips on it as well as probably his palm, but Burton needs to catch that football, and that one really would have helped Trubisky because in that setting it was a 2nd and 2, and dropping the football led to a 3rd and 2. Bears didn't convert on 3rd down. It was not good. So I don't want to suggest that Matt Nagy is somehow completely invulnerable to criticism here. I do think that Mitch Trubisky needed to play better. Don't get me wrong. And I will repeat that as many times as I need to because it just he didn't play particularly great football, but it's also very tough for me to put it all on Trubisky when a lot of the offense feels out of sync, especially when it comes to the running game. We'll go through one of my favorite running plays now of the season because it was the only one that did much good, but the Bears, in this case, they go with a classic counter look that you're going to see 2 guards just pull way over here, and they start with the handoff on the left-hand side, but they give Charles Leno a nice pull, and he's able to really get a good solid block on this linebacker out here. But everybody just seals inside. Whitehair rolls around, hits this linebacker, puts 53 up against Leno. Leno's quick. He's able to get 53, push him into number 43, and the Bears are able to make a nice little 9-yard gain out of it. This shouldn't be groundbreaking. This is a much less complicated, like old school power scheme, and I want to see the Bears use more of it because while I definitely came into the season not thinking that the Bears were set up to power block, they're not doing great in old school zone blocking. So I really hope that they're able to improve and get the running game going. Certainly, if you ask me, I'm expecting a much better running performance against the Chargers, if not better in terms of yards per carry. I think Nagy's going to stick with it a lot more than he did this last week, certainly because not only did he get a ton of media criticism for it, but I do think that by the end of the game, the fact that the Bears weren't running the ball at all was part of the reason that they flopped so hard on offense. That old adage about how Mitch Trubisky needs to get helped out by his running game, that's real. And while I appreciate that we're able to see exactly where Mitch Trubisky is, because every time he goes out and he throws 54 times, we do get 54 looks at the quarterback, sometimes in fair, sometimes in unfair situations. But hey, every single time he throws that ball, we get to quote-unquote scout him. But I'll be the first to tell you, I'd rather win games than scout our quarterback. So I really want to see the Bears run the ball more, utilize the guy that you traded up for in David Montgomery, give your quarterback the less opportunities but more quality opportunities through supporting him with the running game. But in general, things just need to get better. I'm amazed that they looked this bad after the bye week. That's a real red flag. And while I could pin a lot of it on Trubisky, I do think that the locker room kind of feeling like it's in this meltdown-y state that from our perspective, because I don't know anything y'all don't know, seems like it is right about to burst. I think a lot of that's on the coach. So we're going to see what Matt Nagy's made of. We're going to see what Trubisky's made of. But to be honest with you, this is, between you guys and me. I think that Mitch Trubisky is starting to show us that he is who he is. Yes, he was a developmental project, but I'm amazed that he's still not making some of these fairly basic reads or missing throws that you just need an NFL quarterback to make at this point in his third year. And yes, I understand that there were some things that he needed to unlearn from the Fox offense, and those are worth mentioning, yes, but I don't expect in almost any setting a year of NFL play to so adversely affect a quarterback's ability to mentally process that he shuts down almost entirely and actually gets worse. This sort of year 3 regression is a huge, huge problem. And Caesar, I certainly hope that the players discuss something positive, and I'm really hoping that they come out against a Chargers defense that, let's be clear, in terms of DVOA, one of my favorite statistics from Football Outsiders, I believe, the Chargers are 28th in passing defense, and if you watch their tape, it shows. But I am expecting, to be honest, a better day from Mitch because I think that this is exactly the defense for it. If you take a look at Mitch Trubisky's basically his best games of his career, they are the game against Detroit, the 31st DVOA ranked passing defense, and the game against Tampa Bay, the 32nd ranked passing defense overall. Mitch Trubisky's games are the games in which he has played against defenses that just aren't able to stop what the Bears want to do through the air. So I'm curious to see what the Chargers are able to do because while they should be able to get pressure on Trubisky, he should have players even further open, and certainly I have to think that Matt Nagy knows that he's coaching for, or that at this point, certainly the last couple of weeks, but especially now, this offense hasn't looked all that great in 2018. Let's just call a spade a spade. And it's looked really bad in 2019. So his reputation is starting to get on the line. Though I will point one other thing out, because there's one other person, an overarching figure that I think we have to talk about. And Bears fans, at this point, I want you to know, first of all, if you've hung with me this entire stream, thank you so much. You guys are the best, and I couldn't imagine a better fan base to talk to about this. I wish we were talking about more positive things, but this game just didn't have a lot of positives to talk about, and I would apologize for that, but I didn't play. So in that regard, what I will say is I think if you want one person's slightly crazy opinion here that this moment in Bears history is going to tell us a lot specifically about Ryan Pace, because Ryan Pace has to make the decision of what is best for this team, not only now, but in 2020. Because when you look at the way that the Bears contract structure, or the team's contracts are structured, you'll see that the Bears are set up for a smaller window in 2019 and 2020. Now, obviously, sitting at 3-3, if the Bears lose too many more games, frankly, if they lose 2 games in the next probably 5 or 6, the playoff road is going to be very, very tough. And you have the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings to thank for that. Because as they keep winning football games, the Bears fall further and further and further behind. And I tend to doubt that there's ever going to be a situation where 3 playoff teams get in from the NFC North alone. But at this point, the Bears are going to have to take care of business against the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Lions to start. They have to. They have to get to that 6-3 mark. And while I don't know if they control their own destiny at this point, that's a great way to put it, Koyo. Angry, sustained football would be great. These Bears players, coaches, so on and so forth, they need to operate as if their jobs are on the line. That's what I'd love to see. Like, go out there, give your best effort possible. But going back to Pace, given that the team is where it is, this is a moment where whatever he decides to do with the quarterback, we're not looking for process anymore. We're looking for results. He built a great team, supposedly, or he built a team the right way when it comes to developing a young quarterback. He got a quarterback-minded coach. He got a bunch of great receivers. He's locked up a solid offensive line and was going to give him as much continuity as he could. This is exactly what you want to do with a developing quarterback, but as we're seeing with Trubisky, it's not really working out. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for that. Don't get me wrong. And I don't want to be blind to the fact that this could be problems with Matt Nagy, the coaching developer. This could be a Mark Helfrich thing. This could be a line issue. But I want to throw out there that if Trubisky is the problem, if the organization is losing faith in Trubisky, if he's on his last legs, then you have to at least consider the fact that the trade deadline is next Tuesday. Because if you go out and you get another quarterback, regardless of who it is, Marcus Mariota, Josh Rosen, Nick Mullins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, guys that I know are not going to excite anybody. And the fact that I even mentioned those is probably going to get people a little bit upset. And don't get me wrong. Okay, by the way, this is where I need to pause. So I didn't bother to watch the garbage time stuff over again because I saw enough during the game. Davon, I see how you're feeling, and I know that the Bears scored 2 touchdowns quickly, but the Saints' defense just didn't even care. And while I understand that things looked good, and we want to talk about that because Trubisky made plays. Yeah, Cam Newton's not a bad name either, Charlie. The Bears did make plays, but they made plays against a defense that wasn't enthusiastic enough to stop them. And to me, that means it doesn't count. I know that that's brutal. I know that that's harsh, but it's not me trying to specifically lead some kind of assault on Trubisky. It's more me just saying that certainly if Nagy's even openly not going to count that situation in terms of Trubisky's development or things that were good, I don't think we can either. It's positive. Yes, it's nice to talk about, but the Saints were up by so much with so little time on the clock that even though the Bears seemed to, recover every onside kick imaginable, it just didn't seem to work out. Or it didn't seem to matter is the better way to put that. So when it comes to the Bears quarterbacking situation, I do think that it's not a bad idea necessarily to stick with Trubisky, but if it flames out, I think that falls more on Pace than it does Nagy, and obviously Trubisky, but, when a player fails, it's obviously on that player. So if Pace makes a move of any kind, that'd be not only really interesting, but it would be something that I think could theoretically help the Bears out in 2020. We've all heard about how Matt Nagy's offense is so complicated. So if you went and you got a quarterback, again, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Josh Rosen, Nick Mullins, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, just about anybody available, at least you'd be able, for however long that they're on the bench, to put them in at a point where they would be able in 2020 to have a better understanding of the offense than if you got them either in the offseason or, even worse, in my opinion, you drafted them. So then they can only start learning the playbook in April. I see 2020 as an extremely important year because 2021 is where a lot of these players are going to be off the team for contract-related reasons. The Bears' cap situation is really going to come to a head. I think that the Bears kind of have a last hurrah here looking down the pipe of 2020, and so whether they trade for a quarterback or not, I think that we have to make sure that we look at Ryan Pace and we point out the fact that this is his time. If he's going to make a move, it's got to work. If he doesn't make a move, that has to work too. Just sticking with Trubisky does not make you automatically somebody who tried their best. This team is going to be judged on whether or not it's able to sustain success in any capacity. And if you play Mitch Trubisky for the last 10 games just to make sure you know who he is, and the Bears go 7-9, you have to wear that. And you have to wear the fact that you fell from a 12-4 team down to a 7-9 team. If it's me, now I know this is going to sound pretty crazy to a lot of people. If it's me, I trade for Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen is not a perfect product, but what he is somebody who is cheap in terms of contract, and he's cheap in terms of probable acquired draft capital. So the Bears are going to need, if Trubisky flames out, which is not, the jury's still out on it, though I do think it's trending in the negative, the Bears are going to need quarterback competition almost regardless. We all agree with that, right? We all agree with that. So that means that the Bears are going to need to draft a quarterback. And if Trubisky, especially if he flames out, the Bears are going to need a high quarterback, or like a high in the draft quarterback, to match. And the problem is that especially with the Raiders playing the way that they are, you're likely going to have to package your first or your second round pick, their second round pick, and the 2020 first round pick. Davon, I'm getting there. To reach up into the first round, to get around 12th or 13th according to most charts. I thought it was going to be 10th the way the Raiders look to be starting the season, but they're not. They're looking like a decent team, so I wouldn't be surprised if their second round pick will be in the 9-10 region, maybe even a little bit higher. But that means that the Bears would have to basically trade all their top picks to reach up and ignore positions like tight end, offensive tackle, and and cornerback that we need to draft somebody at eventually so that they could get a first round quarterback. Or they'll have to draft somebody in the second. And guys, second round quarterbacks don't come out ready made. If you do draft a second round quarterback, you're likely going to need to sit on him for a little bit, which is a problem because if 2020 is truly a last hurrah style year, you need him to be able to play as soon as possible. That's a big issue. So I don't think you can do that. I look at Rosen, and what intrigues me about him is that he's a former top 10 pick that I thought had the talent to be picked in that spot. He has bounced around the league on offenses that didn't fit or suit him in any capacity. And so you're looking at somebody who has talent, and I want to make it clear, I don't know him personally. It's not as if I know if he's easy to work with. I'm just spitballing based on what I've seen because Rosen can throw a pretty deep ball, and he's made reads before, and I think he works better in the pocket in terms of just subtle mobility, footwork, so on and so forth, than Trubisky does, and you could get him for like a 5th-round pick, and he left almost his entire first-round salary bonus in Arizona. That means that Josh Rosen, to be clear, is a 3-year contract at this point, $2 million per year. So very, very, very cheap. You could probably get him for a 4th or 5th round pick, and that, I think, is going to be better composition and better competition than the Bears are going to be able to get otherwise. Basically, the best way I could phrase it is, I think Josh Rosen's the best value out there. Somebody said Foles in the comments. I think that Foles is going to be a little bit expensive, not only in his $20 to $18 million contract on the year, which is going to put the Bears cap in a further bind, but he's also, or I think he'll play better, don't get me wrong, than Rosen. If I was going to 1-for-1 it, his probability to play better in this offense is higher, I think, than Rosen's coming out of the gate, talking 2019, because I have no idea how Rosen would work going forward, and Cam Newton, personally, is somebody that I look at, and I don't know if he'll be healthy enough, but when I look at Foles, my biggest issue is that we're looking at a guy on the wrong side of 30 that just broke his collarbone. That reminds me way too much of Tony Romo. And I liked Tony Romo when he was in Dallas. I'm from Dallas, so I got to see a lot of Romo. But once those collarbone issues started coming in, he started to fade further and further and further because he'd just keep re-injuring a collarbone. Collarbones don't heal back stronger. If I understand bones correctly, they actually heal back weaker. And somebody mentioned Teddy Bridgewater, and I'll kick off this rant, or I'll move off of this rant to basically say I think Teddy Bridgewater's staying in New Orleans. A position or a play like he made against the Bears and so on and so forth, I see that as something that is going to keep him off of any other teams. The Saints are going to keep him as tight as they can. We would have to trade likely a Jalen Ramsey style haul to even have a shot at getting Bridgewater, and I don't think he's worth that. The Bears truly, somebody said this earlier, they need all the picks they can keep. And that's where I look at somebody like Rosen, and I say to myself, a 4th or 5th round pick to have another quarterback that you can compete with Trubisky with, that sounds worth it to me, especially when you're looking at a guy that had top 10 talent. And if Matt Nagy is truly the quarterback guy that we heard him to be, hopefully he's able to develop him so that Rosen's ready by 2020 and he's able to show us something, because we know he can be accurate with the football. There's other problems with Rosen, but again, we don't need to get into it. Somebody mentioned Mariota. I think that makes sense. I don't think you trade for Mariota. I think you let the Titans cut him, and then you scoop him up from there to add more competition. I mean, we already know Ryan Pace loves him, so that makes sense. It just makes too much sense, in my opinion. But when it comes to trading for somebody, I think you either trade for somebody who you intend to start ASAP. That'd be somebody like Foles. But if it was me, again, I'll say this over and over and over, I would go with Rosen because he's cheap on the contract. So if he doesn't work out, you're looking at a guy who is now your backup quarterback for a 4th round trade and a $2 million contract. Honestly, let's be real, Bears fans. That is a backup a backup quarterback style contract. So I think that Rosen makes a lot of sense. You trade for him as if you're upgrading your backup quarterback, because while I like Chase Daniel, he is a true to form backup quarterback. He's not going to be a starter. And in this specific situation, maybe he might be able to actually play, give Trubisky. If the Bears were going to put Trubisky on IR or something, Chase Daniel has played fairly good football. He's made some of the biggest mistakes. This is something I talked about in the Raiders stream. He's made some of the biggest mistakes out of anybody. He's also made some of the biggest plays out of anybody under center. So you're getting good and bad with Daniel. But overall, I think that especially if Mitch struggles in this Chargers game, it's about time we start thinking about making some kind of move at quarterback. The trade deadline being on Tuesday certainly helps that out, and the Bears need to focus, if they do that, on what their quarterback is going to look like in 2020. Again, maybe that's Mitch, maybe it's not, but you need to plan for both. And this is where I look back and I say, Ryan Pace, this is his moment. This is where he's got to show us who he is, because he assembled a big-time defense. That's great. He has gotten a coaching staff that most would consider fairly good. Chuck Pagano, I really like the defensive hire, and you guys have heard me talk in my videos about how well his scheme has worked against other opponents, but then the Raiders and the Saints certainly seem to be leaning on him a lot, and we need our offense to step up. We gave them time to improve, and they're not right now. And maybe that's Matt Nagy. And if it is, then one of Ryan Pace's biggest accolades, the fact that he was able to hire the coach of the year, starts to look weaker and weaker. But let's for a moment pretend, and I know I'm pretending when I say this, that that the quarterback is the problem. That if you get a better quarterback, the Bears offense functions better, which, I mean, let's be really real, Bears fans. It's looked better when Daniel's in, but not trying to start a fire or get into a fight with anybody. Let's pretend, for the sake of the argument, that the quarterback is the problem. Then it's Ryan Pace's job to get that solved ASAP, because Ryan Pace set the contracts up in such a way that with Khalil Mack only going to get older and older, and Leonard Floyd only on the team for, I think, this year and next year and maybe 2021. I can't remember his contract off the top of my head. And a whole bunch of other guys signed specifically through 2020. I think that This is the moment where Ryan Pace needs to prove to us that he can generate results. This is a big deal. And he needs to make things work out in the Bears' favor. And if not, it's going to spell, I think, likely the end of his career in Chicago after 2020. If things don't work out, we're going to see another house cleaning. And I'll be honest, I don't even want to. Like, that sounds backbreaking, having gone through Trestman and Fox and Phil Emery. And now if we have to loose Nagy and Pace, like we have to let him go because of failures, I think that'd be really, really disappointing because, you just want better, to be honest, and you want to be able to cheer for a franchise that succeeds over time. But this is the moment where whether the quarterback is or isn't the problem, whatever happens, Ryan Pace is going to have to create results, or this is going to come back specifically on his head. Muhammad, to be clear, you can listen back to the live stream once I put this on replay, but I personally think that the best value out there is Josh Rosen. I need to make it clear. I think that it's nice that I get this chance to re-sum it up. I don't necessarily think Josh Rosen is the answer or the solution, but you are looking at a guy, in my opinion, with Josh Rosen, that if the best case scenario happened, you get a young franchise quarterback for fairly cheap that Indiana Jones replaces Trubisky, and now you've got a thrower sitting behind center that is making big plays. And in the worst case scenario, especially if you acquire him for a 4th or 5th round draft pick, you've got a guy who now sits on your bench as the backup quarterback, and he's not phenomenal, but hey, he's a backup quarterback, and you're all right from there. I think that Josh Rosen, to be clear, he's not Pat Mahomes in terms of a quarterback that's going to make tons and tons of plays on his own. But if you're able to give him space in the pocket, he's shown he can place the ball all over the field. If you go watch almost any Dolphins games, I'm serious. That's going to sound wild, but it's true that Rosen played in. His deep ball is landing right in people's hands, and that's something that I think the Bears could seriously and sorely use. So while I understand and Bears fans all over the place. And yes, Gabriel, he has been on the worst 2 teams just about ever. But you have to ask yourself, what quarterback looks good in those situations? Because now that Kyler Murray is getting supported in Arizona, he looks really solid. But anyways, we've talked a lot. It's been almost an hour and 20 minutes. So at this point, guys, I think we've just about talked it out. I am so ready for the Bears to play the Chargers. I hope that they surprise us. I want to see them run it at least 20 times, though I know some people are calling for 30, 35 times to run this ball in the Chargers game. That's an awful lot, especially in terms of like modern NFL offenses, but 20 to 25 carries feels right. I'm expecting a very Denver-style game plan. Like, we're going to run it, and we're going to run it again. I want to see more wider. This is going to sound weird, given that I criticized it earlier in the stream. I do want to see more wide receiver sweeps, like the one where you quickly hand it off to Gabriel and he just jets for the edge. Let's mix things up a little bit. Get Montgomery outside. Tosses aren't a bad idea. Just don't toss it to a wide receiver. Toss it to a running back. Let's get David Montgomery involved. Let your guys go to work. Go hit people. Like, it sounds so simple, but somebody said this in the comments a couple of times. At some point, you got to get back to basics. I really hope this is that game. This is a game where I'm waiting to see a lot from Matt Nagy specifically. I think Mitch Trubisky showed us a ton in this game, but I want to see Matt Nagy prove to us exactly who and what he is in a Chargers game that you cannot lose. They are 2-5 for a reason. This is a team you have to beat. The Saints were a team that you just about had to beat, but we lost. So that's water under the bridge. You have to beat this Chargers team. It's doable to beat this Chargers team, but I think it is about time that we see our coach and our team set themselves up well. That's not the blah. Point is that this is a game you can't lose, especially if you really have your eyes on the postseason. And the Bears need to go, and they need to just make it happen. Problem child, I'm more than happy to provide the live stream. It really broke my heart that I didn't get to make a video because I wanted to make exactly the kinds of videos that I have been making. But I don't know if y'all know this or if you read my post about it, but I got hit quite literally by a tornado that ripped the power down and the internet down for through Thursday, basically. And there was just no reason to turn that around and try to turn it into a video because it just wasn't going to happen. Next week, I really, really want L Train. I didn't even pick up on that. That's really solid. Next week, I really hope to be able to make a video. I want it to be positive, guys. I want the Bears to do better. Oh, David, hey, I do have one play for you that I want to show you because I know a whole lot of people keep saying that the solution is to roll Mitch out. So, kinda. That's not always the answer that you necessarily want it to be, and this is, in my opinion, a decent example. So you're going to see a rollout here with two routes, and I'll be the first to tell you that I don't know whether Gabriel's loafing here or not, but this route kind of just sucks. But when you roll a guy out, you are almost intentionally and deliberately going to take away the amount of routes that they actually have access to throwing to. Gabriel here is covered. Robinson is triple covered. So when Mitch lets this ball go, it goes to nobody. Not only that, but it's underthrown. But again, this is not me trying to break Mitch's back. What I am saying is that when you roll people out, yes, it would be nice if we had somebody short balling right there. Yes, it would be great if we had somebody cutting through this direction. But you can't necessarily roll or throw all of your guys onto this side of the field and roll them through and expect the defense to never just adjust to you and hit you as hard as, and when I say hit you as hard as they can, basically just lock away all your options. When you roll to this side of the field, you're almost never going to throw back in this direction. So defenses are just going to start to roll with you and they're going to take you away. You can't roll out too often. You have to be able to use it as a spell style play. I'm sure we'll see probably, if you had to ask me to guess, I'm going to guess 5 rollouts this next game. And I expect them to be play action, exactly like this, breaking up the monotony of running plays. Probably 2 of them are going to be that tight end style one where we see a tight end usually right around here drawing one of these sorts of defenders so that Mitch has the option to draw the defender with his legs and then move the ball. But you can't use rollouts on every single pass play because they deliberately slash the field in half, and that just isn't tenable overall. At some point, the quarterback play has got to get better. Again, I think that Pace wears this crown of needing the quarterback play to get better more than anybody because he drafted Trubisky. Trubisky doesn't seem like he's functioning well right now. Certainly things seem to suggest that he's regressed, which is heartbreaking, of course, but it's just the state of things. And I want to see Matt Nagy do better. I do. Kyle Shanahan is operating really well around a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo that I don't think much of. So I want to see a little bit more Shanahan-style stuff than Nagy stuff. Because let's be real here, guys. Nagy stuff has really only kind of worked ever. And yes, some of that's on the quarterback. We haven't even had like a 2017-style Alex Smith who was throwing the ball downfield accurately. But past a certain point, especially 20-ish games into all this, more than 20 games if you count the playoffs, we need to see more production out of this Matt Nagy offense. We're not getting that right now, and I want to see things take a positive step forward against the Chargers. Whatever the game plan is, again, I'm thinking it's going to be run heavy, but he's still got to be creative in that. And Tyler, you nailed it. You can't throw the ball 54 times, though I do want to clarify something really quickly. The Bears' true run-pass balance, if you will, before they got into that fourth quarter mode where it was so far gone that they just started throwing the ball, like anybody would do when you're down 3 scores. The Bears were still 28-7. Now, that's an unacceptable run-pass balance, and I'm not defending that. But a lot of times we like to say, "Oh, they only called 7 run plays and 54 pass plays." Well, that's including the whole game. If we chop it down to the point when the game was actually a game, it was more like 28-35 pass plays to 7 runs. Not better, but at least that makes the story a little bit clearer. We need to see more run-pass balance. And when I say that, it's not just because I'm some Chicago run thumper, because I know, I love good running backs, but a lot of it's because I don't think that Mitch is playing very well right now and that he needs to get supported. Whether or not we trade for somebody is ultimately up to Ryan Pace. But I will simplify it and distill this to say that I think the Bears come out. They try to play a Denver-style game, grind up the Chargers, and if they were able to improve the run game like they say they were over the bye week, like Matt Nagy thought they would, this is the game where they need to evidence it. Y'all, it's been an awesome hour and a half. I didn't expect to go this long, but I guess I'm not surprised that I did. Thank y'all so much for listening to me. Feel free to leave any comments now or later about whether or not or what you're liking, what you think that I could do more of, so on and so forth. Thank you so much, Call. That Thomas Jones project was awesome to work on. I'm just glad that I got the chance to be involved at all. Jones reached out to me a while ago, and that's been going on in the background and taking a lot of my energy, but I'm hoping to be able to get back into video making. Certainly, it's a lot of fun, and I like to think that I'm able to provide a lot of analysis that I need to, or that I think people don't often. But hey, y'all being fans is something that I could not tell, or I can't appreciate enough. Basically, y'all are so much fun to work for, so to speak, and I just want to be able to keep providing you guys as quality content as I possibly can. So thank y'all so much. Please hit like on this if you did. Those sorts of things help support the channel in any situation. Share it around to anybody that you think ought to see it, or feel free to just cut it up and pinpoint, like, hey, here's where he talks about Trubisky, hey, here's where he talks about this, that, the other, so on and so forth. But yeah, TJ, I am absolutely a y'all guy. That is how it goes. Because like when you're born and raised in Texas, that is, I mean, that's just a word. I don't know. What do y'all say? Use guys, or something like that. You guys. I don't know. Y'all is the word for me. But if you, feel free to share it around, cut it up. I don't expect anybody necessarily to watch the whole hour and a half, but if you do, you're awesome. Seriously, the best. And thank y'all so much for tuning in. And until next time, y'all, bear down. And thanks so much for bearing with me.